Joe Douglas, speaking of a team that's been, accustomed to maggots and other nasty things, here's Joe Douglas on the expectations for the Jets, which were very high last year. And then they were kind of like, I don't know where they are this year. And somehow they've crept up high again. Here he is.
When things did hit the fan last year, I think one of the more encouraging things was how the team stayed together and how hard the team played. There was never wavering of effort or togetherness, and I thought that was one of the silver linings of a difficult season. You guys have heard me say it before, like pressure's every day. I mean, and we're past the point of growth, and I feel like this is a team that's ready to win, and I feel really good about saying that because of the work that everybody's put in, staff, the football operations staff, coaching staff, players. This has been a really good training camp, and so I can't wait to see all the fruits of everyone's labor as the season goes. And obviously, it's going to be a roller coaster season, just like any other season. But again, it's a great group of people to take the journey with.
We were talking about this last week, and I can't remember what day it was, so I can't remember who I was talking to about it. But Aaron Rodgers said early in the offseason that if the Jets fail this year, everybody's gone. And at a minimum, Robert Saleh's gone. Rodgers quite possibly, or if not likely, won't be back. He won't want to be back, I think, if it's just a complete and total mess again. And some people think, well, Douglas built this team, and it's a pretty good team, so Joe Douglas could survive. And then I see they're 27-56 under Joe Douglas, and the highest they've finished in the division is third place in 2023 and 2019. Like, that's not exactly a couple of feathers in his cap when it's time for Woody and Christopher Johnson to figure out what they're going to do if they fail.
I agree with you. I think it's so hard to predict how the stuff plays out because we look at teams on paper and we look at names, and right away we're like, well, Douglas has done a pretty good job. If you look at the players they've acquired, what they've done, and you look at the roster and you're like, I like the roster. And you look and you say, hey, he didn't pay Jamal Adams, sent him to Seattle, got picks, great move. But I always think it's hard to determine, is this just the coach's fault? Is this because you look at this team last year, you take away Aaron Rodgers' injury, you're like, it is. Like, Joe Douglas did a pretty good job. So because you think, hey, if this happens and it works out the way it should, this should be a team that has a chance to contend for the division. But I think everyone is in that position of this season is important of it needs to happen now. And I don't know if he can escape, because I just think when you go all in with a team, for me, if I'm deciding on the fate of the team, I think it's hard to say, like, this is only on Salah. This is only on Aaron Rodgers. Like, hey, this is the group you deciding you're going in with. You hired a head coach. So it's just hard. I think when we're on the outside looking in, we can have an opinion about it. It's just hard to know when someone's making a decision what they're going to look at. I always look at it as it's a group effort. This is a team project. This is a group project for class. We're all in it. If we get an F, we all fail. No one gets to escape and stay. But maybe he does. We've watched other guys in different situations, and we look at them as a GM, and we're like, hey, they've hired 5 different head coaches, and they've continued to be the GM. And we see other situations where every time a head coach gets hired and the GM that hires them, they all get fired together and they clean house and they move on. So hard to kind of predict what'll happen. But I think it's easy to say this whole Jets team, head coach, GM, quarterback, like, they need to win if they all want to stay there and they all like each other.
It's always a sign of dysfunction when there's different standards for coach and GM. And I've always said they need to be tied together. They either both succeed or they both fail, because when it's going badly, you don't want the coach to be thinking about how can I blame it on the GM, and the GM to be thinking about how can I blame it on the head coach. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.